Don't waste tomorrow's income today. And in order to understand this wealth law, you have to understand what is debt in theory, because debt is spending your future income today. When you go and swipe your credit card and you spend $1,000 that you don't have in your bank account, what you're doing is you're spending $1,000 of your future income. And the cost of you spending your future income today is interest. And this is where the problem with this type of debt is for the vast majority of Americans. They're using this debt not to make the money, but to use this debt to make it look like they have money. People are going into debt to maintain a certain lifestyle. They're going into debt to have nice things. They're going into debt to finance the Gucci, to finance the Louis Vuitton, to finance the vacations, things that you can show off on Instagram, which do nothing for your wealth. It might do something for your clout to make it look like you have money, but it does nothing to really actually make you wealth. And this is where you got to understand that when you're spending your future income today, that means not only are you going to have the nice things today, but then you're going to have to spend next year and the year after that paying off the dumb things that you bought today, which means you got to change the way that you use your money. And that also goes for 0% APR things. And every time I say this, people get angry and type something like, well, Jaspreet, why would I want to spend $1,000 up front to buy a phone when I can pay it off in $100 installments with 0% APR? Well, the reality is 0% APR is extremely profitable for businesses. Now, let's take a step back, because if you're watching this video, I believe that you have some level of financial education, more than the average person. And you know that there's a cost to borrowing money, right? Your bank is not going to let you borrow money for free. If you want to get a home, they're going to charge you a mortgage rate. If you want to go and put money in a credit card, they're going to charge you a credit card rate. So why is it that they're extending you the 0% APR money for 0% APR? The reason why is because the companies know that if they can sell you something at 0% APR, they can get you to buy more stuff. They can get you to buy things that you can't afford today. And not only that, they know that if you don't pay it off in time, which most people don't, because a lot of things can happen in the next 12 months. You could run into financial hardships, you can buy too many things, you could lose your job, a lot of things can happen. And when a lot of people, most people don't pay off their 0% APR in time, what happens is now you get slapped with 25% APR. So what you thought was a financially smart decision, so you'd have more money to invest, ends up becoming a way for you to now have to pay a whole lot more interest to the company. So 0% APR is a windfall for them. It is not a way for you to find some strategic way to save a couple pennies. I'd rather you earn more money, that we can buy whatever you want with cash, and then continue investing your money as well, which brings me to wealth law number 5. Wealthy people want to grow the pot, not squeeze a few pennies out. Let me show you what I mean. Let's assume that I own this $500,000 home, or I think it's worth $500,000, and I want to list it for sale. And I find a nice real estate agent who wants to list it for sale, and the real estate agent says they want a 6% commission to sell my home. What do most people do when they hear that the real estate agent says that they want 6% commission? Most people will say, oh, 6% commission? That's a lot of money on a home like this. I mean, that's like $30,000 in commissions. How about instead of 6%, you take 5% or maybe even 4%? That way I, as a homeowner, can make more money. Now, I own some real estate, and I haven't sold a lot of real estate because my goal is to stack the cash flow, to stack the assets that I own, but I have sold some. And when I go through this situation, one of the things that I try to do is the opposite. I say, you know what? You want 6% commission. Instead of me negotiating down to 5% or 4%, how about this? How about I pay you a 7% commission if you can sell this home for at least 10% over asking price? Now what happens is it's a very different mindset. Now this person is incentivized to go out and sell the home or this property for more money, because now they know that they can get more commission. And now when this broker is working with multiple buyers and they're showing them multiple properties, which property do you think is going to be the one that they're going to push their buyers to buy more? The one that's paying them the smallest commission, or the one that's paying them a fat commission check? And this is where now what you want to be thinking about when it comes to building wealth is understanding how you can work to grow the pot instead of just squeezing a few other pennies out of the pot. Because, well, let me just show you. If you make $50,000 a year, you might work to put aside $10,000 for your savings and your investments. And once you start doing this, you realize, oh wow, I see the potential with my investments. Maybe I won't see much for the next few years, but if I stick with it, I'll be able to build a lot more wealth over the next 10, 20, 30 years. But then you might say, I want to accelerate my path to wealth. How can I do that? Maybe instead of me putting aside $10,000, I put aside $15,000. Maybe I'm gonna live in a shoebox and I'm gonna put aside $20,000. That way I'm living a whole lot smaller and I'm gonna keep putting more money aside for my investments and my savings, which is a great place to start. This is where most people start. But this is where I don't want you to get caught in this trap, which is constantly trying to squeeze pennies out of a limited pie, because at the end of the day, there's a limit to how many pennies you can squeeze out of this. And at the end of the day, a penny saved is just a penny. And this is where now, if you really want to build wealth, I want you to think a little bit bigger, which means now, instead of focusing on how you can squeeze more pennies out of this limited pie, figure out how you can grow the pie from $50,000 a year to $250,000 a year. And because now, instead of you putting aside $10,000, you could put aside $50,000 and still live within that same ratio. Because when you're making 50 grand a year and you're putting aside $10,000 a year for your savings and investments, you're saving and investing 20% of your income. Here, when you're making $250,000 a year, you're saving and investing $50,000 a year, which is still 20% of your income. So you're still living within the same percentage of your means, but now you're saving and investing 5 times more money because you work to grow the pot. And now you're going to say, well, Jaspreet, my boss is not going to give me a $200,000 raise. What do you want me to do? Well, this goes back to what we talked about in the beginning. Remember the mindset shifts. You have to understand that you will become wealthy. Then you have to understand that money is abundant. There's a lot of money in the world. There's trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars out there. All you need is a small little piece of that for yourself in order to have a significantly better lifestyle. Now, it's not easy, but if you start changing the way that you think, you're going to start changing what you do. And if you start changing what you do, you'll also change what your outcomes are. Number 6 is buy value, not price. And I should mention that everything that I talk about, not just in this video, but all of my videos, are things that I have learned myself. And most of them I learned the hard way. So I grew up in a traditional Indian household, and the traditional Indian household is, well, how do I say this? Cheap. And I grew up with this very cheap mentality where if I spend less money, I get to keep more money for myself. And I didn't understand the difference between value and price. And as I started to grow my business, I needed an accountant. And so what did I do? I found a cheap accountant. Now, what does that mean? That means that this accountant was not charging me a lot of money every single month to do my bookkeeping and do my accounting, which means I get to keep more money in my pocket, which I thought was a good thing. But this ended up costing me a whole lot more money, because the first thing that happened is I had so much stress because this accountant never did anything on time. It felt like he didn't really do anything. I felt like I had to be the person to say, hey, you want to file my taxes? Hey, you want my receipts? Hey, you want my bank account information, my credit card information so you can take care of my stuff? So it was always this like me trying to say, do you want to do some work for me because I'm paying you? And things just never really got done. But then it really got bad because I realized that I was paying penalties and fines pretty often, which in the beginning, I didn't think too much of it because I was saving a lot of money in my accounting fees. So what's the big deal if I'm paying a little bit of penalties here and there? But then it really started to get bad because I remember one year, it was a January, I'm in my office, my accountant calls me in the morning. I pick up the call, which by the way, if you get a call from your accountant in the morning in January, it's never a good sign. Pick up the call and my accountant says, hey, Jaspreet, we made a little mistake. Can you do me a favor and send $18,000 to the state of Michigan by the end of the day? And I said, oh, what? Excuse me? And he said, oh yeah, I also have to tell you that we also made a mistake on your federal tax returns. Can you also send an additional $100,000 to the federal IRS by the end of the day today? At which point, I really didn't have many words. And then he went on to say, I also have to tell you that you're going to have to pay some penalties and fees on this as well because we missed this. Which got me thinking. I was paying a little bit of money in accounting fees. But because I was paying a little bit of money in accounting fees, I was paying a lot more money in taxes than I had to. I was paying a lot more money in fees than I had to. I was paying a lot more money in penalties than I had to. And I was taking on a lot more stress than I had to. So then I decided to fire my accountant and go on the hunt for a good accountant. Then I found a good accountant who charges me a lot more. I mean, I'm paying many, many, many multiples of what I was paying before in accounting fees. But number one, I'm actually paying less money in taxes legally. Number two is I save a lot of headache and a lot of stress. And number three, things get done on time. And not just that, I have somebody who actually cares about tax strategy instead of just me having to push them to do their own work. It's the difference between value and price. And many times we get fixated on this idea of how much money is this thing going to cost me? And we completely ignore what the value is that we're going to get. And there's many different ways to look at value. I mean, one way is the financial value. This can be with who you hire, who you work with, type of services you get. But it's also in your life value. We've all stayed at hotels before. And there's a very big difference between when you spend $50 to stay at the Red Roof Inn and then upgrading to the $150 Holiday Inn. It's a difference in value. There's a difference in value when you go from the $150 Holiday Inn to the $250 Embassy Suites. It's a nicer bed, different experience. There's also a difference in value when you go from the $250 Embassy Suites to the $400 Hilton or Marriott. It's a difference in value, a difference in experience. And there's also a difference in value and experience when you go from the $400 Hilton and Marriott to the $1,000 a night boutique hotel that knows who you are before you even walk into the door, where somebody's going to open the car door for you, pick up your luggage for you, and take it into your room before you even finish checking in. It's a different experience. See, it's different value. And this is where you gotta stop demonizing price and understand value. And understand in the beginning, you might not be able to pay the super high prices, but you gotta start understanding how value versus price works. That way you can start getting the higher value, because sometimes one of the most expensive things that you can do is to be cheap. If you enjoyed this clip and you want to continue your financial education journey, I have another video that I think you'll love. All you got to do is click that button right over there. And for those of you who want to stay up to date on the top finance and business news, you can join Market Briefs, my free financial newsletter, by clicking that button below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.